Hello, welcome back to Suzuki Talks. There's no sense in delaying it. It's Kyle, again. You know, I really got to find a better hobby, because this is going to take a toll on my mental health. But, let the torture of brain cells commence. So, as many of you know, Tulsi Gabbard dropped out of the presidential race. And not too soon enough at that. And she endorsed Joe Biden, which I found a little surprising. But when I watched Tulsi's video, it actually made a lot of sense. And for someone who I have major disagreements with, to put it mildly, I actually found this to be one of the few times where she was actually right on an issue. But Kyle, of course, being Kyle Kulinski, cannot fathom that she would endorse a candidate who isn't his Jesus figure, Bernie Sanders. So, let's take a look at what this imbecile has to say about the news regarding Gabbard.
So Tulsi Gabbard just announced that she's dropping out of the race, and she threw a little bit of a surprise curveball at us. Let's take a look.
Our nation is facing an unprecedented global crisis that highlights the inextricable bonds of humanity and how foreign policy and domestic policy are inseparable. We are all in this together, and we must all rise to meet this moment in service to our country and our fellow man. This is not the first time that we have faced adversity together, and it will not be the last. After the terrorist attack by Al-Qaeda on our country on 9/11, we stood together as Americans, motivated to serve, marshaling our forces to defeat our common enemy. I and so many Americans all across this country enlisted in the military to do just that. Likewise, today, as Americans and all of humanity, we face a common enemy. It is once again time as Americans and as neighbors in this global community that we stand together once again and work hand in hand to defeat this new enemy, the coronavirus. Throughout my life and throughout this campaign, my motivation has been to serve God, our country, and the American people as best I can. I feel that the best way that I can be of service at this time is to continue to work for the health and well-being of the people of Hawaii and our country in Congress, and to stand ready to serve in uniform should the Hawaii National Guard be activated. Now, after Tuesday's election, it's clear that Democratic primary voters have chosen Vice President Joe Biden to be the person who will take on President Trump in the general election. I know Vice President Biden and his wife, and I'm grateful to have called his son, Beau, a friend who also served in the National Guard. Now, although I may not agree with the Vice President on every issue, I know that he has a good heart, and he's motivated by his love for our country and the American people. I'm confident that he will lead our country guided by the spirit of aloha, respect, and compassion, and thus help heal the divisiveness that has been tearing our country apart.
Now that was actually a rare occasion in which Gabbard said something I agree with. She endorsed Biden because she knows that he is, in the end, going to be the person who will stand against Trump in the 2020 election. Bernie is not going to win the primary. He didn't do it last time, and it's even more clear that he won't do it this time. So Gabbard actually made the right decision here by choosing to back the presumptive Democratic nominee instead of sowing more division. But that is not good enough for Kyle. Kyle is a purist. He is a cultist. He worships Bernie as if Bernie is a literal god, and he would never endorse anyone who's even slightly to the right of Bernie Sanders, because he is an egomaniac. He is a purist. He cannot compromise, and that's actually I can actually see why at that point he would endorse Bernie, because just like Kyle, Bernie can't learn to compromise. That's why he's only passed 7 bills in his entire time as senator. He's one of the least successful senators in the country because he doesn't know how to compromise. He doesn't know how to make deals with people who don't agree with him. He doesn't know how to come to terms with the fact that he won't get everything he wants and that he's going to have to make compromises with the other side. And Kyle is much the same. Kyle will not vote for anybody who doesn't subscribe 100% to his rigid extremist views.
There you have it. There you have it. Allow me to say this. I disagree. I disagree. And listen, at some point, Bernie's going to do the same thing, and I disagree with him too.
And this right here actually shows how deluded Kyle Kulinski is. He knows that his Jesus figure, Bernie Sanders, will one day endorse Biden. See, even Kyle knows that Bernie won't win this nomination. But Kyle is so deluded and so brainwashed into following this cult that he will refuse to follow anything that goes against his preconceived notions. He won't vote for Biden if his life depended on it, because he doesn't care. He is such an egomaniac that his views are considered gospel, and anything that goes slightly against those views is deemed evil in his mind. He is one of the least intellectual YouTubers I've seen. And I used to be a big fan of Kyle, but now he has shown himself to be, in truth, a cultist and a lunatic. This man would let authoritarianism and tyranny take over the entire world if it meant that he wouldn't have to vote even slightly against his views.
I don't agree. I don't agree. We went through this in 2016. I'm not going through it again. I'm not partaking in it in any way, shape, or form.
Except, Kyle, you are partaking in exactly what happened in 2016. Bernie dropped out, a little late in my opinion, because he realized that Hillary Clinton would be the nominee, and he thought Trump was a bigger enemy than Hillary. And he was right. And you, Kyle, refused to follow Bernie's endorsement. You sat out the election because you didn't care whether Trump took office or not. You didn't care if Trump became an authoritarian, abused his power, and turned back the clock on everything from environments to civil rights to gun control. You didn't care at all about that because you were a purist. You didn't agree with Hillary Clinton on everything, and that was enough to make you not vote for her. This is the problem when you have purists like Kyle. They will never get anything done because they cannot compromise. And I am sick and tired of having to explain that to these brainlet progressives that I've come across.
In 2016, what did I tell you guys? Yes, I'm in New York. It's a safe state. I'm not going to vote for Hillary, but if I lived in a swing state, I'd suck it up and do it. I'm not giving you any caveats this time. I'm telling you the truth. I wouldn't, in a safe state or a swing state, vote for Biden. I wouldn't do it. I can't do it anymore.
So, Kyle, what you further proved how much of an ignorant cultist you are. You would rather sacrifice the country than vote for someone who agrees with you on most things. Because you are a purist. You would condemn this country to another 4 years of Trump just because Bernie didn't win the nomination. You are a child. You are an ignorant, whiny, petulant child. And my heart breaks for the people who listen to you and follow your advice when it comes to politics. You are the worst enemy of progressivism and liberalism because you don't care about your country. You don't care about our people. You only care about getting what you want. And let me break it to you, Kyle. The world doesn't work that way. You can't always get what you want. But if you can compromise, you can get what you need.
I can't do it. I'm done compromising away all of what I believe. See, that's the thing, and that's where people get it twisted. They think like, oh, you're being a purity test person. Is that what you're being? And you won't vote for somebody who you agree with on a lot of... I do. I agree with him on a lot of stuff. Look at his record. How many times have I showed you guys this? He supported the Iraq War, NAFTA. By the way, Iraq War, Tulsi. Iraq War, Tulsi.
And here comes the non-interventionist garbage. Hey, Kyle, the war in Iraq was the right decision. Saddam had shown the entire world he was not a fair actor. He committed genocide against the Kurds using poison gas. He invaded the neighboring country of Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. And he had long intended to start a nuclear weapons program and rebuild his chemical stockpile. Our intervention, although it had many flaws, was fundamentally the right decision. And your bullshit apologetics for Saddam are not getting past me.
Iraq War, Tulsi. Iraq War, Tulsi. I know your whole thing is anti-war. Iraq War, Tulsi.
Ever notice how when non-interventionists like Kyle say they're anti-war, they only mean it in the sense of the United States going to war? Kyle never criticized Putin for invading Crimea. Never criticized Assad for gassing and bombing his own people.
NAFTA, permanent normal trade relations with China, Patriot Act, TPP, repeal Glass-Steagall, war on drugs, Wall Street bailout, anti-gay defense of marriage act. He opposes legal weed, a wealth tax, Medicare for all, free college, canceling student debt. And you could add to that list ending the wars because he ain't going to end Dickie McGee's axe. You know it, I know it. You know it, I know it.
Good. This idea that somehow the United States pulls out of all other conflicts, that war will end, it's ludicrous. Do you realize what the world was like before we went in? Do you realize what grotesque human rights violations were going on in Afghanistan and in Iraq before we intervened there? Now, one can debate the merits of our intervention plan, but to say that we are the ones who caused the war is utter nonsense. It's absolute, complete, utter nonsense. Kyle, listen to me. If we withdraw from Afghanistan, the Taliban will take over the country again. We will have sacrificed thousands of soldiers' lives for nothing. The Taliban will once again impose their abhorrent style of government. They will once again condemn women to be second-class citizens. They will once again commit genocide against the Hazaras, and they will once again impose the most authoritarian, theocratic government that entire region has seen. But apparently that doesn't matter to you, because you're an isolationist, and because you don't give a shit about the rest of the world.
So, I'm sorry, man. What do you want me to do?
I want you to grow a spine, and hopefully a brain at that too, because you are really something. You are really deluded, Kyle. I can't believe I used to actually listen to your takes on foreign policy, because they are bullshit.
In a situation where I know, as a matter of fact, he will fight for none of the things I care about.
You don't know that. You don't know that at all, Kyle. You're looking at Biden's record from 30, 40 years ago. And yes, there are some issues that you care about in which Biden will never agree with you. But you know what? It's the same with me. Biden opposes the death penalty. I support it. But you know what? I'm willing to look past that because I am more than a single-issue voter. I know that Biden and I will never agree on some things. If he becomes president, he will probably do a lot of things I will 100% not like. But you know what? I would take him any day over Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is never right about anything.
My dad is dead because we don't have Medicare for all, and he just said I would veto Medicare for all, even if it got to my desk and I didn't have to lift a finger.
Okay, that was completely taken out of context. Biden never explicitly said he would veto Medicare for all. He never said that. And Biden supports universal health care. He just realizes that it cannot pass the legislature, which apparently you still can't realize. Even if Bernie somehow wins this election, he will never get Medicare for all through the Senate. It is solidly Republican, and that is not going to change in this election. And even if somehow, by some miracle, the Senate were to flip Democratic, there will be many conservative Democrats in the Senate who will also oppose Medicare for all. It won't happen, Kyle. It's not going to happen. You are sacrificing everything for something that is impossible.
What am I supposed to do in that situation? I'm not voting for it. I'm not voting for it. It's not happening.
And in not voting for him, and in encouraging others to not vote for him, you are going to condemn this country to yet another 4 years of Donald Trump. Is that something you want? Has Donald Trump done anything that warrants your vote? Because I know you and Donald Trump are polar opposites. Trump doesn't want Medicare for all. He tried to repeal Obamacare. He has gone backwards on all the issues you care about, not forwards. Why can't you compromise, Kyle? Just tell me, why can you not compromise?
And what I would say to Tulsi, and what I would say to Bernie, and what I would say to anybody who's an anti-establishment maverick, be that.
Now we have more whining about the establishment. It's like watching Alex Jones. You know what, Kyle? I like establishment. You know why? Because they have experience. In no other field does this anti-establishment mentality make sense. If I was going to get a heart operation, I wouldn't be like, I don't want an establishment doctor. No, I want that guy from the golf course because he's an outsider. He's a maverick. Trump is an outsider. Trump was elected proclaiming himself to be an outsider. And look at the tremendous damage he has done to this country. It's safe to say I do not want another outsider to ever be in the Oval Office. They don't know what the hell they're doing.
Be that. They don't like you. They're never going to like you. They're never going to, play ball with you. They're never going to, can take you seriously. So, rep that role. That's what I would do. Rep that role.
What a painful conclusion to a painful video. Jesus Christ, I think I lost brain cells listening to Kyle. But I really think, actually, that this shows the mentality of the progressive crowd like Kyle Kulinski. They are incapable of compromise. They suffer from a horrific lack of vision. They absolutely cannot fathom that they can't get what they want. And they are perfectly willing to flush this country right down the drain if they don't get what they want. This behavior is beyond childish. Populism, progressivism, and non-interventionism, all the stuff that Kyle is, it's just whiny, petulant childishness. And I sincerely hope that this time around, most of the people who didn't vote for Hillary will come to their senses and vote for Biden in the general election. Yes, I know Biden's not the most likable candidate. He has a lot of gaffes, he has a lot of slip-ups. But you know what? I would take him any day over Donald Trump. I would vote for him 100 times before I would vote for Donald Trump. And I will never, ever understand the absurd mentality of people like Kyle Kulinski. They are not liberals. They're not even progressives. They're cultists. And like cultists, they're completely brainwashed and are incapable of conceiving that they could possibly be wrong.